he needs no introduction. We know him as a father to us, somebody we look up to, and he's a living testimony to what we want him to come and speak about. He has served loyally and faithfully the people of South Africa, even in the highest office, in the office of the presidency during the term of former President Thabo Mbeki. He has served the people at national level through government and also through the Church of God. He has served faithfully. He has served with integrity. And we are talking about corruption, both in the public and private sector. And I know that he's been exposed to both levels. And talking about corruption in the public sector, we know many things have been reported, of course, all over media and through various platforms, but even today, we still believe that the administration that he served under found a way of dealing with corruption. Because of the extent of corruption we see today all across, when we see whether it is the state capture, even prior, things were exposed. And it is none other than Reverend Dr. Frank Chikane who can tell us what are his observations, what were his observations even during the time he was in the office of the President Thabo Mbeki, there as the DG. And also, I believe his experience with City Power gave him another exposure as the chairperson of the board. Reverend, please, you are welcome, and kindly talk to us about your observation. We know you have even written, there are chapters that you have written that talks about this corruption, and we really need your input in this based on your observation. Reverend, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, even if it was short notice, but I'm a resident of Midrand, so that's why you are able to take advantage of me. Can I just say, I'm pleased to talk to mainly business, and in terms of the organization Midrand Local Economic Empowerment. It's about empowerment of business, particularly Black business, small business sector, etc. I thought I must start from there before I share my experiences, because that's all I'm going to do. My problem for now is that the time we have is very short. So I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. Firstly, I just want to say to our Black brothers and sisters that there is no easy way of changing an economy without us becoming part of it to change it. There's no way of doing it. And the way we have done it, and I was there the first 13 years, the way we have done it in terms of Black empowerment and etc., it was almost like make an arrangement to make sure Black people get money, but it's unproductive money. They make money move away, the company is still controlled by whites. And so we need to have a completely different strategy. So I would like to say that for me, the day we're going to change this economy, it's when we become involved in productive activity, business that is productive, not just playing around the game of money and producing no value. We need to work on value add, whatever we do. We need to provide services. The best business people are those who provide services or solve problems of people in the community. In fact, creativity, most of the entrepreneurs are people who look at a problem and say, how can we solve this problem? And so we cannot change this economy via corruption. It's not possible. And this is what I'm going to speak about now. The program facilitator talked about books. I've written a chapter on corruption, and I would recommend it to you to read it. Actually, if I had time, new on time, I would have said read chapter 11 of my book, The Things That Could Not Be Said. In that chapter, I call it the scourge of corruption. And I start by telling a story, and I want to tell you that story quickly. The story, for people who are in this forum, I can talk about being at Harvard. I don't like talking about that as if you boast about it. But when I was there doing my public administration, and this lecturer gave us a bundle about lecture notes, case studies on corruption. When I prepared for the class, I found that the 3 case studies were African case studies. There was no American case study or European case study. And that made me very angry. And I read it and said, well, I can't stop reading because I have to pass this course. I must engage, but I'm very angry. And I went to class very angry. And when I challenged the lecturer, because we're a class of 49 international, mainly international students, highly experienced people. In that class, you had to have 7 years of experience minimum. When I challenged him, he said to me, I hear you, but I would like to tell you an example in the United States won't help, because where they are rich, they survive with corruption. There's lots of corruption. But when people are poor, corruption hits them harder than those who are rich. And I think that's the real issue that we need to think about and learn about. And so I would like to deal with my experience because it's very painful. When I arrived in government, 1995, 2 years later, I made an observation that the old is corrupting the new. So because the old was corrupt, and people say apartheid was corrupt, so let us be corrupt as well and be rich. And I say you'll destroy the country. So they were corrupting the new. As we were arriving, they made sure the comrades who arrive are corrupted. And I thought it was funny. And then I thought, why are they doing it? The best way to protect yourself is to corrupt the new. So the new regime had to be corrupted. So comrades get corrupted so that they don't deal with them. And once you are corrupted, you can't talk about corruption anymore in your setting. And so I wrote a letter to President Mandela, because I was there during President Mandela's time, copied to Deputy President Mbeki to say, the old is corrupting the new. When we open our eyes, we'll find that we are so corrupted that we can't transform this society. And at that point, unfortunately, the letter was classified, so it can't be made public. I'm waiting for it to be made public. At that point, they chose a different approach. Do legally create the systems to make sure corruption does not survive. So we have the best legislation about corruption. We've got the best institutions. The Public Protectors Institution was part of that creation to make sure that we don't have corruption. But that corruption grew in any way, even with the law. And I always say to people, people think the first 10 years was great, actually. I mean, we did our best to reconstruct this country, change it, economy, everything. But by 2008, the growth rate of this economy was 5.6. And it was by design, not an accident. And we put all our energy there. And we're so innocent that, corruption was not part of our vocabulary. But the old was corrupting us slowly. So you will see the people who appear in the commission and get charged would have started even before President Zuma comes into power. And I want to make that very clear. So corruption just got intensified, and the more people get corrupted, the more they can escape from it. And so I would like to say the old corrupted us. But I want to make a number of examples that really destroyed my heart, basically. If you get money to do the sewage system in Orange Farm, and you take that money, you bribe people, you then go and buy cars, do all sorts of things, produce a sewage system, Ephuphumanga Sesotho. I went there, you know, it comes out in the streets into, when it rains, it takes the stuff into people's houses. And you say, but what type of a black business person could do a thing like this? Take the money, doesn't produce the road. You say, build a road, they take the money and take it to their pockets. And what then happens, it affects the poor more than the rich. That sewage system will not survive for a day in Sandton, but it is in Orange Farm, and it's the same government. It's our government. It's our same local authority. But it's our own comrades who get these tenders. And instead of building, and I always say, a capitalist is better than our comrades, because a capitalist will create a budget that builds a road, even if he's rotten, but they will still have a road. Our people don't even build the road. I mean, they take money to build houses in the Free State, and then they build no house, and our people are staying in poverty. This asbestos story, the money is in people's pockets. And so the country then becomes poorer. If you look at the SAA, for instance, it's people who exploited the SAA to make sure they enrich themselves. Now we must bail it out. And ESCOM the same, etc. And so I would like to say that corruption will destroy this country, and our economy will collapse, and will not be able to balance our books, and the poor will remain poor forever. And so I would like to say that the corruption is not just a moral issue. You see, if you are a reverend, Muruti is you are the facilitator today, but when they see us as pastors, they think it's morality. So I say, leave morality out of this, because it's crude. Corruption destroys the economy. And that's why many countries on the African continent have failed. They take money and keep it in Europe and develop Europe instead of developing their own countries. And we must be the ones who say no to corruption. And business people who are real business people get involved in productive business activity, produce products and value, and offer services to the people, rather than make money without adding value. I don't mind people making money. By the way, I congratulate those who are really creative and become rich. That's good. But then it must be because you are producing a product or adding value that will make a difference in the lives of people. And I wish we could have a team of Black business people who are going to systematically plan how we're going to take over this economy and engage in productive activity, own companies, and employ people and give livelihoods to people. That's what I would expect that we would do as Black people. The Afrikaners did it, but they were doing it for the minority against the majority. We don't have a majority that is exploitable. It is our own people. And we need to change the way in which we operate. I mean, for those who are in leadership, the public protector used the words influence and gratification. And I think those who are in leadership and participate in stealing people's money should actually be charged for treason, because it's destroying a state which has ended up not having capacity to cause any change whatsoever. Once you've neutralized the leadership of the state, then the state loses capacity. And we then fill it up with people who are not qualified, because we want people who will drive corruption. And they can't run a city, they can't build streets, they can't roads, they can't do anything except wait for a salary and a bribe tomorrow. And I thought I must approach this subject this way. I know the public protector looked at it from a public protector's perspective, but the crisis this country is facing is huge. Unless we take a stand, we're going to lose power, and the demagogues will take over and govern us. Thank you very much. I try to save as much time so that we can have a conversation.
But how come we are not having people who think business as a system that can be used to assist the state to build the economy of this state and to create employment? What is the difference? What is it that you were emphasizing then that is probably missing of recent? Over to you, Rev.
Yeah, no, let me just say that's why I deliberately made the statement that 2 years after I went into government, because that government was corrupt, that which we inherited. And 2 years later, I say the old is corrupting the new, because it had started to happen. And our comrades were very vulnerable. Actually, I always say, we said we are ready to govern. You know, those who come from the ANC tradition will know we produced a book that said ready to govern. And I'm convinced we're not ready. We did not prepare comrades as revolutionaries to be able to defeat the system. When you've got a snake, you have to make sure you defeat it and kill it. If you don't and it sits around with you, then you are going to be part of that crisis rather than resolve it. So I think we had a very extraordinary team at the beginning. I must give you the first 10 years because I always use that. The first 10 years, we produced a 10-year report. You can go and read it. Joel Netitenze was in the policy unit during that time. And we indicate, it tells you exactly what the effort was. That generation was not about corruption. It was about reconstructing, restructuring, and transforming the state and the economy. And we did a lot. I mean, yeah, we transformed the army, we transformed the police, we transformed the public service. Today, you've got public service leadership that's black, but it's not producing the results. And so it's not just a matter of changing from white to black. It's whether or not you've got blacks who are going to make a difference in the positions that they are given. And so, but then things went wrong when the politics go wrong and when corruption reaches the top, when the top does not act against corruption, then you get the sliding down. I didn't think I have enough time to tell you about what we did at the beginning was what we need to do in the economy to be able to end poverty. That was the question. And we did research. Jay Naidu was the minister in the RDP office, and I was there. And we did research that unless the economy grows at a rate of 6%, we will not get rid of poverty and will not change the conditions of the oppressed. And then we put up a plan, an elaborate plan, that looks at what each department must do and how you use your budget to change the lives of people. We went to SOEs, these SOEs that had been looted. We went to SOEs and said, as ESCOM, what is your contribution? As Transnet, what is your contribution to make sure we reach the 6%? And so by 2008, we hit 5.6% growth. And people have forgotten that. And it was deliberate, it was pushed very hard. But you can't combine that with corruption, because corruption, it's a leakage in the system. If the money leaks out, you can't actually grow the economy because it's used for unproductive things. You know, people make billions and they take the billions, they don't invest to create more work, to create more companies. They take the money and go and enjoy themselves elsewhere rather than invest. If I challenge your group that you look at the first 30 companies that were formed through the Black empowerment, 2 waves of Black empowerment, go and look for those companies, they are nowhere. I think it's less than 10 that still exists of the 30. Because people went there to do deals about money, but were not engaging in business. People become billionaires, but they don't know how to do business. They've never done business. It's an accident of history that you are sitting in the right place to hit the billions, but you changed nothing in the country. And I think that's what went wrong. Now, the politics of the governing party became part of the game, because I think there was a whole generation into the 2008, around that period, which then talked about empowering Blacks by taking over the economy, and then others now call it radical economic transformation. But actually what they mean is to get money for Black people without doing anything. And I say that's destroying the economy. It's not radical economic transformation. And so the rot, as you capture the state, and I didn't want to come and talk about this now, what happened in this country in the last 10 years is that corrupt people captured the state or state entities. And for you to capture it, you must capture intelligence first. That's the first area you bomb. You then go to the police, you go to the National Prosecution Authority, then you go to the judges. And we survived because the judges were not destroyed. And so we have a generation that thinks about themselves rather than the country. And that's the difference between the old generation and the generation that's now. But let me correct that and say there is an old generation in this corrupt game. Just check their age. You will know that they have been part of the old who have become corrupted and abandoned our mission to liberate our people. And so I think it's a pain that I hope the younger generation will come and say, we're not going to allow this, going to stop it. Nobody will go into government to enrich themselves, but they go to government to serve people. If you want to enrich yourself, go and do business. Don't go to government. And government must be there to serve the people and enable Black people into the economy without corruption. And I think that's my view. I feel very strong, as you realize, about what has happened in our country. It's a pain that we are where we are.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I think I just want to join in with, I know it's a question, and we know that you are a right person to give an answer on this, because you just mentioned now that if people want to enrich themselves, should not go to government. They should not go to work in government hoping to enrich themselves, because the two are different. I understand that the profit in the public sector should be about service, and the profit in the public sector, it's economic gain. But people misplace themselves. They put themselves in government for economic gains. And this is leading me to ask this question, Rev, and I'd always prepared this question. I knew that you will answer best, to say, Reverend, what kind of education do you think public servants lacks? What is it that should be done to educate anybody entering that public sector space to know? Because it seems as if people don't understand why they are in the public sector. That is why ourselves here as people in the small SMEs, we are told, sometimes you'll be told, a government official will call you and tell you that, oh, we see your tender or your request for quotation, your response to this quotation, we can consider you, but you need to give this much. But that's a public official with a salary who probably does not understand why they are there. What form of education is needed to these public servants? So what are they supposed to know? What is it that they lack?
No, we did design a program, and you know, the current Premier of Northwest, Mohoro, was the person who was going to set up that structure and institution to prepare civil servants. But you see, you can't clean up civil servants if the political principals are the ones that are corrupt. The solution is not training civil servants, because if the corrupt are the politicians who go to the civil servant and say, do the following, that's illegal, then you are not expecting to clean up the public service. I think we have to start from the top and say the political principals must be people who are there not to make money or help their friends to make money, but they are there to develop the country so that people can make money. You know what I'm talking about? It means it's a service you offer. I mean, people I have helped in my life have lots of money. I don't have it. And my children used to say to me, Dad, why are you not the same as the other DG? They live a better lifestyle than us here. And I said, if you don't know where they get the money, don't try it. Don't try it. Leave your standard of living for money I worked for. Everything I have today, I worked for. I did not get it through corruption. So I think the problem we have now is that the rot comes from the head. If you elect people based on corruption, you buy votes. If you become an MEC because we paid to get you there. If you become a president because we paid to get you there, you can't deal with corruption. So we need to start with the parties that deliver people into the public service, because the ministers then appoint the senior civil service, and they appoint people who are there for their bidding, not for the country. And if we get it right at a political level, then you can fix the public service, because the public service were building up the first 10 years, creating foresight and bringing capacity into the departments and etc. All that was destroyed because the political leadership that came in had no interest in people who have capacity, who know what they are doing. They wanted people who don't know what they are doing, who are corruptible. And then you corrupt the whole system from the DG down. We're going to need a lot of work to recapacitate the state, which has been hollowed and has no capacity to deliver. I mean, we have money, but we have sewage running in a street. I don't understand that. We've got money, but we can't deal with asbestos because we take the money away. I think for me, the public servant will be a public servant if the political leadership is clean. If it is not clean, it will be very difficult to produce a public service that is very useful. You need a minister who's going to allow a public servant to tell him what he can do. And I must say, I work with President Mbeki. If he came from Luthuli House and said, you know, this is what we think we should be doing, and if there is something that has some irregularity in it, I will say to him, no, it can't be done that way because here is the regulatory framework for it. But if you work with somebody who will say, if you say there's a law here says change alumtet, you know, change the law so that we can do what we like, then you are in big trouble. And so there is an effort. I know we tried during Comrade Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi when he was in public service, effort to set up a public service training facility, turn the state into a developmental state, not a looting state. That was never achieved. Up to now, we're still struggling to do that. And I think we must, as the people of South Africa say, those who are corrupt must get out of government, get out of the leadership of political parties, and let's have leaders who are going to develop this country. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Reverend, for the way you have clarified. And I believe that it is exposing actually the gap that exists in terms of education. And this education now I'm referring to based on the answer you have given, our political leaders. I say this because, like you said, we cannot deal with public servants if the political is corrupt. So it means that it takes education to the politicians to say, do you understand the mandate you hold from those that have voted you into power? Will you say boldly that you are executing the mandate they've given you when they voted you into political office? And we say this with worry, Reverend, in that looking at the government of today, and of course, you know, you watch the news every day, you are hearing about the commission and the hawks there, this and that, and you wonder the actual mandate that the president has to move the country forward. When will he focus on that? Because it's as if now we probably have a president who is appointed, and we just hope we are picking lessons from it. It's as if we have a president who is appointed to only come and expose corruption and deal with it. And that cannot take the nation far. So it takes maybe even the younger politicians who are coming there to say, I think this is the way to go. We should not repeat this because history will judge us. So we have to move forward and build a better country that we will all be proud of, and not to be found in the situation that the nation is found in now. And it's so unfortunate that there is too little that one man can do, and we hope people join hands with him and fight this corruption the way it is. And we want to say, Reverend, that the reflection therefore tells us that lower level of corruption, even during the administration that you served under, led to higher economic growth, because that leakage was blocked of funds and monies that could disappear and no one can account for. So the money that was there, if we say we have this much, that money is available and the budget can be executed accordingly. And that high economic growth led to low level of both poverty and crime. And we know that these are social ills, especially these two last ones, poverty and crime. These are social ills, and that is why even the president will find himself now having to extend grants, you know. We were probably not supposed to be going through this, but this is a reality we are facing. Grants have to be, you know, extended to say, yes, COVID has impacted, you know, people have lost employment and so forth, but they are losing employment on top of the country or the society that was already into high level of unemployment. But we are just reflecting here to say the efforts made then to cut down, to fight corruption, led to economic growth and also low level of poverty and crime. Is that reflection correct, Reverend?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll need another hour to deal with some of the issues you have raised. Now, let me put it this way. I think those who would have read my 33-page document about us losing our trajectory, you know, I mean, we reached a point where we lost the trajectory we're following, and people began to serve their interests, our family, friends, factions, rather than the people. Once you move from that, you can't achieve what we tried to achieve in the first 10 years. The question you are asking is, I mean, the president had to deal with this corruption because we're in the, I mean, we were deep in it. And when he was made president, he's a product of Nazareth. And I've said this before, I don't want to be political and party political in this platform. But I mean, they gave him a leadership that was balanced, but it was really balancing the good and the bad. And if you have got that type of balance, you can produce results because you spend more time dealing with the contradictions within yourselves instead of focusing on how you change the country. COVID has hit us hard. The effort to really put the economy on the map again, it's very impressive, the discussions among social partners. But still there are constraints because even when you have the money to make the difference, people go and steal that money instead of using it for its purpose. The PPEs are a good example. And so I think the president needs the people of South Africa. That's my view. The president needs the people of South Africa to say no to corruption. We want all the taxpayers' money to go into the development of the country, and that those who are in government are there as facilitators to make sure we achieve those objectives. And no to people who want to bring us down. And this is where I would want to end because I can see your time, it's against you. But we need to say clearly, and this is me, who has made the observation that there are people who want to bring this country together with them rather than face the consequences of what they've done. And so they do a Solomon thing. So you will understand that, Reverend. He went to the pillars. He said, please let me sit, go, and I'm tired. Pull, you know, be against the pillars of this temple, of these leaders who were all inside that temple. And he pulled it down. He died with them. And I'm saying we must not allow any corrupt person to bring down this country and destroy it. We need to allow those who have committed crimes to go to jail, leave us alone. and let the country reconstruct itself. And I think that's where we are. I mean, we are at the crossroads as I speak now, and we cannot let the country go. This country is so resourceful. We shouldn't be poor in this country. I mean, this economy must be performing at its highest. I mean, we can learn a lot from the Chinese. I mean, now they're talking about the largest economy in the world. But, you know, they worked hard in their strategies. I mean, their last 3 presidents were engineers. You know what I'm talking about? People who know what needs to be done with the country. And we lost it. We lost the plot. We need to go back and say, please, those who are corrupt, just leave us alone. Leave the country to reconstruct itself and go back to the rails. And I believe we're going to make it. But if we allow individuals to destroy the country before us, then we are dead in the water.
There is the so-called radical economic transformation that we are hearing out there. But we always say that, but the social element is missing. When are we going to talk about, if we talk about radical, why can't we talk about radical socio-economic transformation? Why do we talk about because this economic transformation, if we speak of it outside the social context or detached from the social context, is causing this problem that we are having with the tenderpreneurs who don't even know anything about business or even social responsibility in their communities. But I know you can just say something to us, Rev, before you leave, to us as the Midrand Local Economic Empowerment.
I would like to say, you know, if I had my way with your group and you talked about the numbers, I would say, let us do what the country should do. Be a think tank. Think about the best way in which we can change the socio-economic conditions of our people. And I believe that that's the best way in which you can actually deal with the crisis we are facing. Instead of depending on the political leadership, we must, from the grassroots, determine what is good for us. And as people in Midrand can stand up and go to the leadership and say, we have thought about this. This is how we think we should go about it, rather than wait for them. I work with the veterans, and we have recently had a conversation with the top 6 to say this is where the challenges are, this is where it's going to go wrong, and you need to do the following to change the course. And each one in their own sectors, whether in business, in churches, you know, I work with the churches, and we agreed that our heritage is not corruption. Corruption is not our heritage. And we went out to campaign around that. So every sector, like we did during the UDF days, the UDF was a bringing together different sectors in society, lawyers, nurses, business people, churches, community groups, to take on the system. And if we took on the system, nobody will go into leadership and mess up with our country. It's impossible. So I would say, let's start from Midrand. Let the young people take a stand and say, we do not want corrupt people to govern us. We have thoughts and we have strategic plans. Here are they. And if every Midrand in the country does the same, we will change the circumstances. Let me just say, for the Council of Churches, we decided we're going to have what is called local ecumenical network groups in each ward, so that we can network the country and make sure that the rotten will not survive in any corner of this country. I think that's what we need to do. And those who are business, must be engaged in doing real business, productive activity that adds value to the economy, the GDP of the country, etc. That's what we need to do. And I would encourage you to follow that route here. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend, for your valuable time. I know that we got you on a very short notice, but you know, talking to you is always like drinking from a well of wisdom. We are so blessed as Midrand Local Economic Empowerment to have a father like you, and for the position you hold in society, and the fact that you do not want to change based on a leader. And it is a principled leader who will say that even when President Mbeki will come to and give a directive, if it is against legislation, you will be able to rise up and say, but this we can't do because it is against legislation. That is I believe that is the country or society we want to be part of. That wrong is wrong, irrespective of who said it or who is doing it. So we are so grateful for this input and the words of wisdom, Reverend. And we know that we will be engaging you more. We know that we are well equipped today to hear from you. We understand things differently. And of course, we will engage you more and more. We are just respecting time today. And with these few words, I really want to thank everybody who gave me an opportunity to facilitate this, the leadership of Midrand Local Economic Empowerment, for allowing me to facilitate this e-dialogue. And everybody who joined, thank you for your time. May God richly bless you.